Episode 6, let's go! Hey guys, this is a build series. If you haven't caught the previous episodes, we're up to about episode 6, so get caught up and let's go. We're gonna do the steering in this one. So we have a 1923 Model T here. Okay, maybe it's not exactly a Model T, but we're gonna get steering installed. So we have C4 front suspension already installed. So this is all C4 components, coilover conversion, custom radiator support, and upper cross member, stock lower cross member, narrowed 4 inches. Now we have a Mustang 2 rack. So we have these are moved ball joints for this rack. But first, we need to narrow this about 2 inches. So I have some tape here. I'm just gonna take this and mark it like that. There you go. Now that we got the rack all marked up, we're gonna cut it right at that line. That's gonna narrow it enough to make up for the 4 inches that we narrowed the actual suspension. So once that's done, we'll get these outer tie rods on and we'll keep moving. Okay guys, so we got the rack sitting in place. It looks like it needs to come down quite a bit. It's hitting the frame here, so we're gonna have to notch into the frame here, and again on this side. We marked exactly where we want to drill the holes. So on both sides we drew a line, and then I started the pilot hole on this side just to kind of make sure it was exactly where I wanted it. This is really important, so make sure you mark your holes left to right and try and keep them as even as possible. Even though they are not for mounting the rack, they are for clearance. So if you're a little bit off, I mean, you could be a little bit off, but if you're too far off, you're actually going to probably risk the boot rubbing on the frame. So just make sure that you're as close to symmetrical as possible and straight with where the steering rack is actually going to fit in. So that's the cutout. As you can see, it is a little bit thin. It's almost to halfway. So that should be a good cutout. And then, as you can see, this makes a little bit of a cripple zone so that if you do have an impact, it'll actually try and fold this upward. Okay guys, so what we'll do is we'll clean this up later on, and when we clean it up, we'll cap this whole thing so it looks very nice. Onto the other side though, and then we can fit the rack in. There we go. So now we have both sides cut out. So now we can take the rack, place the rack back where we want it. As you can see, there's more stuff hitting over here. This isn't hitting by much, so we can clearance this. It's not gonna be a big deal. But as you can see, it fits pretty good. All right guys, this is the difference between an engineered front end and something thrown together. Is the only thing we have to adjust for is we're using a different rack than we were expecting. So it hits a little bit with that boot, the boot itself. So we'll clearance that. But other than that, I mean, these holes line up perfect. So we're gonna, we still have to make supporting hardware for this, and then it should be good to go. And then that goes, tie rod goes right into the knuckle. Damn, so that's looking pretty good. We gotta get these bolts in, so. This is just temporary hardware. We're gonna get this hardware in, but first we have to pull the rack out, grind the cross member where that seal is touching, just because I obviously don't want to have pressure on that little input seal for the rack. So we'll get that done, and then we'll get this rack in. Let's go. All right guys, so we just notched that out a little bit. That side's not notched, that side is. That should be enough. We'll clean it up later on if that is good enough. So let's go see if the rack fits. So the rack right here, and should go in pretty much just like that. So there we go. So just like that. All right, so this is the steering all done. We still have to do the alignments, towed in just a little bit, but we got both tie rods hooked up. It is mounted in place with temporary hardware. So we got steering, yeah. So here we go. So this is the Mustang 2 rack. with the Mustang 2 tie rods, and we clearance just a little bit for the steering input to go in. So we had to clearance just a little bit for that because we're using a different rack than we initially were going to. All right, guys, so we got our Mustang 2 rack installed. It is installed with temporary hardware and good to go. So we actually do have a steering T-bucket. Make sure you stay tuned, subscribe. We're gonna do weekly updates on this build, and we have some big progress coming soon.